Right. So, when the Romans built a Phrygian rock-cut altar, the Chamdibi necropolis, as a cultural nexus in the mountains of Roman Bithynia. And first, I would like to thank the conference organizers for all of their hard work in making this happen. So, in this talk, I will go over the form and design of this funerary monument in the modern town of Chamdibi, as well as its ancient topographic context. Then I will provide it a more firm date based on looking at parallel case studies, which we have a more firm idea of dating. Then I will spotlight the site's resemblance to Phrygian mountaintop step altars. And once I have established this resemblance to Phrygian step altars, I will demonstrate that this was deliberate. This was a deliberate connection to the Phrygian tradition of step altars. Then I will explore the implications of this deliberate connection and how it represents a form of cultural memory on a sacred mountain landscape that lasts into the Roman era, a fusion of old local practice and tradition with classical elements. And that is at once steeped in a deep history, but was also legible to contemporary populations in Roman era Bithynia. Then finally, I will ask the question of how common sites like this were and what it means that this site exists at all, and further questions. So first, onto the general description of the site. Naturally, it is in ancient Bithynia. The site stands near the ancient city of Nicaea, now called Iznik, which is on the shores of the Iznik Golu, which you can see here on the slide. The tombs themselves are on the western edge of the modern town, Chamdibi, next to a recently built Sulkanal which you can see there, and nestled into the base of the mountains on the southern edge of the plains that are east of ancient Nicaea. You can see it down there on the southern part of the plains. And here you can see the monument, the water canal, and then the plains on the left side of this picture to get an idea of what the setting is. Little scholarship on this site exists, only in a few sentences of an article by Ahmet Ali Altun on funerary monuments in the Nicaea area and things like this Kos Universitesi database, but no one's actually dedicated a lot of time or an individual article to this site. So it is worthy of of attention, and that is the goal of this presentation. So let's investigate this site and its implications. First, let's outline the specific elements of the site. It is carved into this boulder that is emerging out of the earth, and it has, in modern times, faced damage from treasure hunters just in the past few years. So on the right, you can see what it used to look like before the dynamite, and on the left, you can see after the dynamite. The damage isn't horrendously extensive, but you can see there that a bit of the rock has been blown off, and here is where you can see the remains of a drill hole for dynamite and wires left over. So when I was speaking to local people while visiting the site, they mentioned that so-called archaeologists were investigating the site and blew up part of it with dynamite within the past few years. Luckily, it only affected that southwestern corner, so it didn't really get in the way of analyzing the site, thankfully. And this is a site of at least minor local interest because all the people I spoke to knew about it, and there was trash left from visitors and locals at the site. So clearly, there's some element of local interest, whether it be just visiting or treasure hunting. So there are two approaches when you visit the site. There's the altar, which you see on the left there with its own set of stairs. And then on the southern side, there's a less steep part on the back of the boulder, which acts as sort of a natural rock ramp up to where the sarcophagi are on the top of this boulder. because you can't easily clamber up to the sarcophagi from the altar part of the monument. So let's get a closer look at that altar. It's just over 2 meters in height and 1 meter in width, and it's oriented east-west, and exactly east-west, actually, which we will get to. That is very important. You can here are the two sarcophagi on top of the boulder. They're just about 2.5 meters in length and 1 to 1.2 meters in width, about 0.75 meters in depth, and they have this chamosor. Yeah, there they are. They have this chamosorion design. Unfortunately, the rock lids that would have gone with these are no longer present at the site, and these two are also oriented precisely east-west. Interesting. Then there is this one unfinished probable sarcophagus that I found to the east, which no one has mentioned yet. It's 1.43 meters in width and 1.6 meters visible in length, but it seems to keep going beyond what is visible. So this is within the size range of a possible sarcophagus, and this too is also oriented east-west. It's definitely man-made. You can see very rectangular outlines and the signs of chisel marks. So this, I think, is a third sarcophagus, likely. And again, oriented east-west. So in terms of dating this site, you can see the ChamDB site on the left, and then on the right, here's a parallel case, which we can use to help stylistically date it. This is the monument of Gaius Julius Aquila on the road south from ancient Amastris. And you can see that the altar here looks extremely similar in style to the altar from ChamDB, right? So this monument from Gaius Julius Aquila was made during the Claudian era. So this puts in the 1st century AD and well into the Roman era of control of Bithynia. So this points towards a Roman date. Here we have this monument, Lucianus monument in Fossalar, and here you can see some stylistic similarities, but most important, you see these rock-cut sarcophagi on the hills above it, which look extremely similar to the Chomosorion sarcophagi we have at ChamDB. And this is also a Roman era site. So this indicates a Roman era date. I'm not comfortable giving it anything more specific than a Roman era date, because I think stylistic dating can be a bit dodgy, but I do think it is comfortably within the Roman era. I think we can comfortably say that based on its resemblance to these other monuments. And speaking of resemblance, the monument is quite a bit like a Phrygian step altar. So here we have one from Midas City, which is just on the off the southern edge of the borders of Bithynia. And this is step altar type 3D, which looks a lot like what we have at ChamDB. We've got rock-cut stairs going up to this facade monument with a relief carving. So very similar to what we see in ChamDB. Here's another type back from Fossalar, which is step altar type 3B. So there are different types of Phrygian altars, and the one from ChamDB falls square within the realm of 3D. If you look at it here, we've got these rock cut steps going up to this relief altar. Right. So another part of the resemblance is it's in this mountain setting. It's at the base of the mountain in this rock jutting out of the ground. And another similarity to Phrygian step altars is its east-west alignment, which is a famous characteristic of Phrygian step altars. It would have had a great view of the setting sun over the lake, but yes, it falls within this east-west Phrygian step altar type, right? So I'd argue that this was a deliberate connection to the Phrygian step altar tradition. Here you can see that it's near, but not right next to the road east out of ancient Nicaea. If you wanted it to be more visible, and you were building this monument, you would have put it by the roadside. But they didn't. They put it towards the base of the mountains across the valley from this ancient road. That, to me, points to a deliberate connection to the mountain setting. There's a deliberate choice for a mountain setting, similar to these Phrygian mountain step altars. Furthermore, the fact that it has a specific east-west alignment also points towards this deliberate choice. Because if they wanted the altar to be as visible as possible, they could have pointed it towards the road, right? But they didn't. They pointed it west, away from the road, decreasing its potential visibility. So there must have been some reason for them to put its west orientation above the priority order, above its visibility. And I think that that is the desire to connect to this Phrygian tradition. Furthermore, once you add this clear step altar type to those two details, the mountain location and the choice to aim at west instead of maximizing visibility, and now you have very good evidence for a deliberately Phrygian type in this architecture. So what are the implications of this? Well, one of them is this cultural memory, this cultural memory of this sacred mountain landscape that you see continuing into the Roman period, embodied in this site. There's this fusion of the old local practice of these step altars and classical elements, like this very classicizing pediment design. They have this fusion that would have been legible to passersby in the Roman world, as Nicholas Purcell talks about translocal recognizability. If you were some Roman from Italy, you would have recognized the Roman form here. But it also, while being able to speak to a broader empire's population, engages in these local forms. And it can do both by fusing the architecture together. The architecture of the Phrygian step altar with its niche, relief, and the Roman classicizing style. Now, this is different from a place like the monument at Fossalar, because at Fossalar, this Phrygian altar, it may be of Roman date, but it could also be pre-Roman. It's possible that the Romans considered this existing Phrygian altar when they decided to put funerary monuments there. So we don't know for sure if the Romans built a deliberately Phrygian step altar in Fossalar, just because the date is uncertain. Whereas we do know that in Chamdibi, because it has that Roman classicizing style. So it must be of a Roman date. So we know that it is a deliberate Roman era construction. Right. So that makes Chamdibi different from a Roman era site like Fossalar. Also, the other tombs located in and around Nicaea, none of them are like this to my knowledge. You can see the funerary monuments are indicated by the triangle there, and no other funerary monuments to my knowledge look like they're working within the Phrygian step altar tradition. So there's the question of whether this monument, which you can see marked on the map down here, is a one-off, or how common was it? Even if it was not common, the fact that it happened at all is significant. The fact that you still have this Phrygian idea of the sacred mountain and the step altar continuing into the Roman era is significant, even if we just have one example of it. Another interesting aspect of the Nicaea funerary monuments is this sort of strange scatter. So you've got, a reasonable amount of funerary monuments just east of the city, by the road, which makes sense. But you also have clusters like this, which, while they're close towards that northern road, they're not quite there. They're much closer to the base of the mountain than they are to the road. So if we take this monument at Chamdibi as a cue, this Phrygian sacred mountain steeped monument as an indicator, perhaps there is this idea of the sacred mountain manifesting in this location of tombs close to the base of a mountain. That being said, that is impossible to prove and is only a suggestion of further investigation. And I doubt that that would be the only explanation for why you'd put tombs there, but it may be part of the equation. So in sum, The Chamdibi rock-cut sarcophagi and altar purposefully engage with a mountainous Bithynian landscape as a Roman iteration on a local cultural practice stretching back to the Phrygians. It is an example of the broader cultural fusion so characteristic of Roman Bithynia. And this is just one small contribution to the larger landscape discourse in Bithynia and sort of dips a toe in the water of debates about Romanization versus sort of a local initiative. And this would point towards a local initiative reaching towards Roman types rather than the reverse. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and I'm very excited to hear feedback about this research and these findings.